$2,000 a month from me, straight from my hard-earned savings, just so they could live comfortably. I thought I was being the perfect, dutiful daughter, sacrificing my own financial freedom to ensure they never had to worry about rent, groceries, or bills. But on my wedding day, the most important day of my life, their seats at the front of the chapel sat completely empty. They didn't show up at all. When I finally called my mother, holding back tears in my bridal gown, she snapped, "Don't bother us right now, we're busy." I hung up the phone, shaking with a mixture of heartbreak and pure rage. In that exact moment, I logged into my banking app and closed every single account and allowance linked to my name. Exactly 30 minutes later, my phone began to ring frantically. My name is Chloe, and at 26 years old, I thought I finally had my life completely figured out. I am a registered nurse, a profession that demands every ounce of your physical stamina and emotional strength. For years, my life was a blur of exhausting 12-hour shifts, running through white hospital corridors and sacrificing sleep just to build a stable career. But I didn't mind the grueling schedule because I believed my hard work was serving a greater, noble purpose. You see, for 3 long years, my parents received exactly $2,000 a month from me, straight from my hard-earned savings. I set up an automated wire transfer because they constantly guilt me about their financial struggles, claiming they couldn't survive inflation without my help. I happily took on extra night shifts just so they could live comfortably, believing I was being the perfect, dutiful daughter. I paid for their peace of mind while completely putting my own financial freedom on hold. However, looking back, the warning signs of a toxic golden child dynamic were always there. While I was drowning in hospital bills and exhaustion, my younger sister, corporate ladder dropout, always got a completely free pass from them. My parents treated my monthly hard work as an entitlement, never once asking if I was doing okay. They simply took the money, demanded more, and secretly planned to use my unconditional love as the ultimate tool for their own selfish betrayal. Everything changed when I met Austin. He was kind, incredibly supportive, and the first person to ever tell me that my own happiness actually mattered. When he proposed, we began planning a modest wedding, carefully tracking every single penny we had left over after sending that heavy $2,000 monthly allowance to earn my excitement. But as the date drew closer, their behavior became noticeably cold, distant, and deeply dismissive. Whenever I called my mother to ask for help with small wedding errands, like picking out floral arrangements or joining me for a final dress fitting, she would sigh with deep annoyance. They acted as though my wedding was an inconvenient distraction from my primary job of funding their lifestyle. During a rare family dinner, my younger sister flashed a smug smile and dropped a cryptic hint about a major family celebration happening around the same time as my big day. When I asked her what she meant, my father quickly cleared his throat and changed the subject, changing the topic entirely. I felt a sudden flicker of unease, but I quickly brushed it off, choosing to trust my family. I falsely assumed that no matter how much they favored my sister, they would never dream of missing the most important day of my life. I was completely wrong. The wedding day finally arrived, and the atmosphere in the bridal suite should have been filled with pure joy. Instead, a suffocating silence hung over the room as the clock ticked closer to the ceremony's start time. I stood there in my beautiful bridal gown, staring out the window at the arriving guests, my heart sinking lower with each passing second. The front row of the chapel, specifically reserved for my family, sat completely empty. There were no smiling faces from my mother, my father, or my sister. Austin walked into the room, his eyes filled with deep worry, trying his absolute best to comfort me by suggesting they were just caught in bad traffic. But as the minutes stretched into a half-hour delay, the devastating reality began to set in. Our guests were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, whispering to one another, and casting pitiful glances toward the altar. Standing there, completely abandoned on the most important day of my life, a profound sense of heartbreak washed over me. The very people whose lives I had spent 3 years financially carrying, working endless double shifts at the hospital just to keep them comfortable, hadn't even bothered to show up. They had left me to face my wedding day entirely alone, and the painful public humiliation was a sharp, waking nightmare that I will never forget. Driven by a toxic mixture of deep heartbreak and bubbling rage, I stepped out of the bridal suite, pulled out my phone, and finally dialed my mother's number. I expected a frantic excuse, perhaps a car accident or a medical emergency, but when she answered, the sounds blasting through the receiver left me completely frozen. There was no sound of a highway or a quiet hospital room. Instead, my ears were met with a chaotic wall of loud music, clinking glasses, and people cheering happily in the background. Before I could even open my mouth to speak, my mother snapped with deep irritation. "Don't bother us right now, Chloe. We're incredibly busy." The sheer coldness in her voice hit me like a physical blow. When I demanded to know where they were and why they were missing my wedding, she let out a sharp, impatient sigh. She casually revealed the ultimate betrayal. They'd skipped my wedding entirely to throw a massive, incredibly lavish baby shower and gender reveal party for my younger sister. My jaw dropped as she explained that the venue had only been available on this specific weekend, and they decided my sister's big milestone took priority over mine. The absolute worst part? As she continued to ramble on without a single ounce of guilt, I realized this extravagant party, complete with high-end catering and a rented country club hall, was being funded entirely by the $2,000 allowance I had faithfully sent them that month. They hadn't just abandoned me. They had used my own grueling hospital night shifts to finance the very event they used to publicly humiliate me. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking violently. Driven by a sudden wave of ice-cold clarity, I walked away from the venue corridor and locked myself inside a private dressing room. The tears that had been threatening to ruin my bridal makeup instantly dried up, replaced by an intense, burning sense of resolve. I pulled my phone out of my silk purse, my fingers no longer shaking, and opened my mobile banking application. I navigated straight to the Scheduled Transactions tab and permanently deleted the automated, monthly $2,000 wire transfer that was set to hit my parents' account the following week. But I didn't stop there. I went a step further and systematically canceled the 2 supplementary credit cards I had graciously given them for emergencies, the same cards they were currently using to pay for my sister's high-end catering. Finally, a townhouse lease, which was entirely under my name, and officially requested to remove my authorization codes. With a few decisive taps on my screen, I completely severed the financial lifeline that had sustained their comfortable, ungrateful lifestyle for the past 3 years. I locked my phone, took a deep, steadying breath, and looked at my reflection in the mirror. The submissive, guilt-tripped girl they thought they could exploit was officially gone. I smoothed down my wedding dress, opened the door, and prepared to walk down the aisle toward a brand new life, completely free of their manipulation. Exactly 30 minutes later, right as our beautiful wedding reception was beginning, my phone began to blow up with a frantic, nonstop barrage of calls and desperate text messages from both of my parents and my sister. I excused myself for a moment and answered the call, only to be met with absolute chaos on the other end. The sweet music from their party was gone, replaced by my mother's breathless, screeching voice. It turned out that right in the middle of my sister's lavish event, when they went to pay the massive country club venue and catering bill, every single credit card I provided had been completely declined. They were trapped at the register, utterly stranded with a mountain of debt they couldn't personally afford, and the venue coordinator was threatening to call the authorities. Instead of apologizing for abandoning my wedding, my father grabbed the phone and began to fiercely gaslight me, screaming that I was a selfish, heartless monster for ruining my sister's special milestone. They fiercely demanded that I log back into my app immediately to reactivate the accounts and fix the humiliating mess I had created. They were completely blinded by their own panic, utterly ignoring the fact that they had maliciously skipped my wedding day just 30 minutes prior. Listening to their desperate pleas, I realized they didn't view me as a daughter at all. I was simply a broken ATM machine that had finally decided to fight back. I listened to their frantic screaming for a brief moment before a wave of absolute peace washed over me. I calmly told them that their comfortable life at my expense was officially over, hung up the phone, and turned it completely off for the rest of the night. I walked back into my reception and thoroughly enjoyed every single second of my beautiful wedding celebration, dancing with my amazing new husband. In the months that followed, the consequences of their choices caught up to them quickly. Without my $2,000 monthly allowance, my parents were forced to drastically downsize and move into a tiny, affordable apartment. My ungrateful sister had to face the harsh reality of her own mounting bills, learning the hard way that adulthood requires actual effort. Meanwhile, Austin and I used that extra savings to buy our very first home, building a wealthy, peaceful life completely free of toxic family manipulation. Now, I'm incredibly curious about all of you who have stayed to listen to my story until the very end. If your own family had treated you like a personal bank account and maliciously abandoned you on your big day, would you have cut them off just like I did? Or do you think us and the specific city or country you are watching from so I can see exactly how far Chloe's story has reached today?